Welcome, Age of Vintage Society. Dorothy Malone appeared in dozens of forgettable movies in the 1940s and early 1950s, playing mainly sweethearts and wives, and her career was going nowhere until she decided it was time to change her image. She won hearts of 1960s television viewers as the long-suffering mother in the nighttime soap Peyton Place. Why Dorothy Malone decided to gamble on her career instead of playing it safe. Make sure to watch the video until the end and leave your thoughts in the comments. If you are new here, join our wonderful community by subscribing to the Age of Vintage channel. Dorothy Malone arrived in Hollywood during the height of the studio era in the 1940s and appeared in dozens of movies, including westerns, musicals and crime dramas. Much of Malone's early career was spent in supporting roles in B-movies, many of them westerns, although on occasion she had the opportunity to play small but memorable roles, such as that of a brainy, lusty, bespectacled bookstore clerk in The Big Sleep with Humphrey Bogart, and the love interest of Dean Martin in the musical comedy Artists and Models. By 1956, Malone had transformed herself into a platinum blonde and shed her good girl image when she co-starred with Rock Hudson, Lauren Bacall and Robert Stack in director Douglas Sirk's melodrama Written on the Wind. Her portrayal of the dipso nymphomaniac daughter of a Texas oil baron won her the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress. As a result, she was offered more substantial roles in Too Much Too Soon, where she portrayed Diana Barrymore, Man of a Thousand Faces, and Warlock. Additional screen credits include The Tarnished Angels, The Last Voyage, and The Last Sunset. Her film career reached its peak by the beginning of the 1960s, and she achieved later success with her television role as Constance Mackenzie on Peyton Place. She had been one of the last surviving stars from the golden age of Hollywood. The future star was born Dorothy Malone on January 30th, 1924 in Chicago. Took some time before it made an impact with American film-going audiences, but once she did, she played it for all it was worth in her one-chance Academy Award-winning Bad Girl performance, a role quite unlike the classy and straight-laced lady herself. She was one of the 5 kids of Esther Emma Eloise Smith and her husband Robert Ignatius Maloney Sr., an auditor who worked in the telephone company AT&T Corporation. Her siblings were Patsy Jane, Joan Esther, Robert Bruce and George William Maloney. Both her sisters died from polio-related complications, and one of her brothers was later killed by lightning while on a golf course. She grew up in Dallas, where she was later discovered in the way most performers only dream about. She attended Hockaday School for Girls, Ursuline Convent and High Park High School. Later, she studied at the Southern Methodist University with the ambition of becoming a nurse. "As a child, I lived by the rules," she said in 1967, repeating them over and over, abiding by them before I fully understood their full meaning. She had wonderful high school memories and was voted school favourite and queen of the ROTC, and began to discover her talent as an actress when she won first place in a UIL one-act play. Dorothy earned an academic scholarship to Hockaday Junior College. She then attended SMU, where she was named a Rotunda Beauty. While at SMU, Dorothy was performing in the campus play Starbound when an RKO Studios talent scout discovered her. At the age of 18, Dorothy Malone was signed by RKO under her actual name, Dorothy Maloney. In 1943, she made her film debut by appearing as a model in Gildersleeve on Broadway. The studio gave her nothing more than bit parts in 8 movies for a year, so she switched to Warner Brothers. Around 1945, she dropped the Y from her last name, thus Dorothy Malone was born. It was the start of her extraordinary career and life. Dorothy was a part of the golden age of Hollywood and first lived at the iconic Hollywood Studio Club for Girls. Early on, she made her decision to dedicate her career to God and would sign every autograph with, "May God bless you always." She made her first major film breakthrough in 1945, captivating audiences as a bookstore clerk in The Big Sleep with Humphrey Bogart. She played a clerk who helps Bogart's character, Philip Marlowe, identify a suspect, then eagerly shares a bottle of rye with him on a rainy day. In a memorable scene, Malone removes her glasses, pulls down a window shade, a move she improvised during the filming, and says, "Looks like we're closed for the rest of the afternoon." She closes the shop, lets her hair down, takes off her glasses and seduces the private eye in a shelter from a thunderstorm. Her other films at the studio were less provocative. The scene, which Hawks considered cutting because it was not indispensable to the complicated plot, was saved, according to the director, just because the girl was so damn pretty. Her other movies include Night and Day, One Sunday Afternoon, Colorado Territory, Young at Heart, and Battle Cry. Dorothy's career offered amazing life experiences. In 1946, at age 22, she was invited to travel via the Queen Elizabeth to be presented to King George VI and Queen Elizabeth of England. In the late 60s, she was granted a private audience with Pope Paul VI at the Vatican. She was also a White House guest for 3 sitting US presidents. Throughout the next 2 decades, she went on to star in over 70 films, in addition to numerous TV guest appearances and commercials. In 1957, Dorothy won an Academy Award for her role as Mary Lee Hadley in Douglas Sirk's Written on the Wind. In her acceptance speech, she dedicated her Oscar to her late brother Bill. She was also nominated for a Golden Globe for that role. Some of the more notable films included Young at Heart, Man of a Thousand Faces, Tarnished Angels, Too Much Too Soon, Battle Cry, Artists and Models, Beach Party, and The Last Voyage. Dorothy starred alongside such iconic leading men as Rock Hudson, Cary Grant, James Cagney, Errol Flynn, Kirk Douglas, Frank Sinatra, and Ronald Reagan, to name a few. After 11 years of mostly roles as loving sweethearts and wives, the brunette actress decided she needed to gamble on her career instead of playing it safe. She fired her agent, hired a publicist, dyed her hair blonde, and sought a new image. Her new role was Doris Day's sister in Young at Heart, a musical that also starred Frank Sinatra. The new look helped transform her career. "I came up with a conviction that most of the winners in this business became stars overnight by playing shady dames with sex appeal," she recalled in 1967, "and I've been unfaithful or drunk or oversexed almost ever since. On the screen, of course." In 1960, her star was added to the Hollywood Walk of Fame for outstanding work in motion pictures at the corner of Hollywood and Vine. Malone's career waned after she reached 40, but she achieved her widest popularity with Peyton Place, the 1964-69 ABC series based on Grace Metalius's steamy novel, which became a hit 1957 movie starring Lana Turner. ABC took a gamble on Peyton Place, scheduling what was essentially a soap opera in prime time 3 times a week. The TV version was one of the first to deal frankly with sex, and as such didn't air until 9:30 p.m, when the kids were presumably asleep. It proved to be a ratings winner, winning new prominence for Malone and making stars of Farrow, Ryan O'Neal and Barbara Parkins. At the time, doing television was considered professional death. However, I knew the series was going to be good, and I didn't have to prove myself as a star. She welcomed the offer for Written on the Wind, in which she played an alcoholic nymphomaniac who tries to steal Rock Hudson from his wife Lauren Bacall. Malone was offered a salary of $10,000 a week, huge money at the time. She settled for $7,000, with the proviso that she could leave the set at 5 p.m, so she could spend time with her young daughters Mimi and Diane. She had been divorced from their father, a dashing Frenchman, Jacques Bergerac. They had a contentious divorce 4 years later that spanned the next 10 years. He had been discovered in France by Ginger Rogers, who married him and helped sponsor his acting career. They divorced, and he wooed and wedded Dorothy Malone in 1959. The marriage lasted 5 years and ended in a bitter court battle over custody of the daughters. I wish Ginger had warned me what he was like. Malone married 3 times, 2.5 by her calculation. Her second marriage to stockbroker Robert Tamakin in 1969 was annulled after 6 weeks. A marriage in 1971 to motel chain executive Houston Bell also ended in divorce. I don't have very good luck in men. I had a tendency to endow a man qualities he did not possess. When a reporter suggested that she was well fixed because of the Peyton Place money, she replied, "Don't you believe it. I had a husband who took me to the cleaners. The day after we were married, he was on the phone selling off my stuff." Malone, whose daughter on Peyton Place was played by Frank Sinatra's soon-to-be wife, Mia Farrow, suffered a pulmonary embolism while working on the series in 1965, and she underwent 7 hours of life-saving surgery after more than 30 blood clots were found in her lungs. Lola Albright temporarily replaced her on the show. After complaining her character was being slighted in storylines, Malone was written out of the series in 1968. She sued 20th Century Fox for $1.6 million, and the case was settled. She returned to the franchise in the 1977 NBC telefilm Murder in Peyton Place. Free of her Warner Brothers contract, Malone was cast by Universal in Written on the Wind, which she later termed the most fun picture I ever made. Important films followed, but none of the roles matched her Mary Lee Hadley in Written on the Wind, and she welcomed the offer of Peyton Place. In 1992 she was again in a top feature, playing an aging lesbian murderer in the Sharon Stone Michael Douglas thriller Basic Instinct. It was her final on-screen role. At some point in the early 1950s, Malone left Hollywood and, with the intent of getting married, returned to Dallas, but the engagement fell through. She did charity work and was involved in church activities in the Dallas area and worked for an insurance company before she decided to move to New York City. There she studied in the American Theatre Wing before eventually returning to Hollywood. Malone, a brunette, dyed her hair blonde for her role in Young at Heart. She later credited this change as a pivotal moment in her career and felt that the blonde locks promoted a more sensual aura and thus attracted more sultry roles. Dorothy Eloise Malone died from natural causes on January 19, 2018 at an assisted living facility in Dallas. Dorothy's career and accomplishments did not define her. She dedicated herself to her craft, never motivated by fame or fortune. She felt blessed to be able to work in an industry that she loved. Dorothy appreciated and was deeply humbled by her fans from around the world, who have continued to contact her and keep in touch over the past 70-plus years. Her love and generous spirit touched so many. To her friends and family, Dorothy was known for her deep faith, strong character, big heart, sharp wit, and fun-loving spirit. If you liked this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you are new here, and if you want to support my work, please visit my Patreon page. Now it is your turn. What do you think about the life and legacy of Dorothy Malone? She had many trials and tribulations throughout her life, but always pulled from her inner strength and was able to face any obstacle.